Well, we are back. NBA Strategy Show Friday, July 31st. I cannot believe it's almost August, but honestly, I'm happy about it. Breaking news in baseball, which we're not talking about. Brewers and Cardinals game postponed for a positive test. That's fun. But this is a basketball show, and I am joined by Ben Rasa, my former Daily Show partner. Ben, what's up?
Not much. Happy Friday. Yeah, used to doing shows with you, just not on the NBA. So happy to do it. I know last night we got some action, but this to me is like the official tip off.
Yeah, I really wanted to watch both games last night. I didn't think it was a very good slate to play from a DFS perspective. It turned out to be a very disgusting slate from a DFS perspective. Kudos to the winners. Kudos to DraftKings for paying out an extra $1 million without taking that in. That's always nice.
I don't understand how it's seemingly anytime we hit like once a year 40% overlay, that is just destruction for me. It seems a lot easier. It should be easier. Marcus Morris had other plans for me, but you know what? Now we get the Nets, we get the Wizards, we get all the elites of the league coming back.
Yeah, I would have expected to have more money in my account with the massive overlay last night. Turns out not so much. Went a different direction. I decided to donate as well. So congrats to everybody, including one of our own. Blaine, he covers tennis for us, was part of the 9-way chop on DK for the Millie, took down $141,000 last night. Jordan Clarkson, JJ Redick, Royce O'Neal, Kyle Kuzma, Anthony Davis, Donovan Mitchell, Paul George, Drew Holiday. That combination put up 306 fantasy points and put $140,000 in Blaine's bank account. Not a bad way to start off the NBA season.
No, all things considered, pretty good chop. Like if you would have asked me what will the winning, payout be, I would have taken the under on $140. So yeah, pretty good. Honestly, just like all 2-game slates, when you see the winning lineup, you're just like, oh, that wasn't that crazy. It's never as crazy as you think it's going to be. But obviously, big congrats to him and everyone else who took it down.
There was a point in time in the middle of the Clippers-Lakers game where I was tied for 5th on FanDuel, but I was tied with 8 million people and boxed out of 1, 2, 3, and 4. So the chop was for some staggeringly small amount of money, like $80 or something like that to finish. Yeah, I was like, okay, cool. Can I just remove this from my results so that it doesn't cloud what I think is happening? It can only fall and never go forward. Miserable.
No, that's a terrible feeling. But, first day, 2 games. Now we get a 6-gamer. This is more my speed.
And to those of you that are happy about Jordan Clarkson's performance, you got bailed out. -18 plus minus for the game. He's probably the reason they lost. I don't care if he scored. That dude can't play defense to save his life. Now, you could have been like me, played George Niang and watched him go 0 for 6 and look like he had never been on a basketball court before. We can't all be winners. Apparently just Blaine.
Yeah. Well, at least someone took something down. But you know what? I'm very excited because there's a ton of unknowns. But at the same time, and we're going to talk a lot about this, we just don't know. The rotations are going to change. Yeah. There's going to be a lot of guessing here, and that creates value. But at the same time, it's going to create a lot of frustration.
Well, as you're getting in here, guys, 370 plus of you now, but I expect that number to climb pretty dramatically. Please hit the thumbs up. Hit that like button on your way in the door. We're going to have a pretty good show breaking down all 6 games. The likes help us out a ton. So like, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you know when this and all of our other content goes live. What's this message here? I saw a Josh in there somewhere. Maybe I didn't. And I shouldn't have listened to Josh about Niang. Nope, you shouldn't have. Look, he took the shots 0 for 6. He just sucked. That's the worst part of it all. But it's okay because you can play at SuperDraft tonight. Go to superdraft.io if you're looking to check it out. And I think that you should. It's the future of daily fantasy. You don't have to worry about salaries. You can say goodbye to them. All you have to worry about is multipliers. You could roster anybody. The lineup freedom is fantastic. So someone like Luka Doncic today, I believe, is a 1.1 multiplier, maybe 1.05. I know I said it in my contenders video. I don't remember it off the top of my head, but like Harden and Westbrook are both at 1 flat. You can get other guys 1.5, 1.6, 1.7. So if they have a big day, they are going to blow their projected points out of the water. If you get a guy that scores 30 at 1.5x, you're hanging 45 instead. That's a big time increase. SuperDraft has contests for NBA, MLB, NASCAR, PGA. They'll have NFL in about a month. If you sign up using the promo code Awesemo10, AWESEMO10, you get $10 free on your first deposit of $10 or more, or $20 free on your first deposit of $100 or more. They've got an app in the App Store, so you can download that to your phone, or go to superdraft.io. That's SuperDraft, no limits, more winning. Ben, we've got a 6-game full slate here, and some of these teams are not really basketball teams, but we got to talk about them anyway.
Yeah, from a DFS standpoint, that's going to be, I guess, good and bad. There's a lot of new names, a lot of new faces, a lot of value. But there are certainly some teams that have absolutely no, like, stone dead to do anything if they even make the playoffs.
Well, speaking of one of the teams that are stone dead, I think it's time to dive in here with, oh God, it's going to be so weird. See, Laffy handled this for me. I'm used to saying hosting. So it'd be Brooklyn Nets hosting the Orlando Magic. Nobody's hosting anything. All of these teams are on neutral floors. Well, I guess Orlando is the home team in a way.
Yeah, they get the bubble boost.
Yeah.
But yeah, they are neutral per se.
It's a shame they have to be in the bubble. They should be allowed to go home.
They're the only ones. They can just do whatever they want.
Well, I'd be like, look, man, I already live in Orlando. Why do I got to live somewhere else? Go talk to my kids through the fence or something. Anyway, it's not important. Brooklyn Nets, Orlando Magic. Magic 7-point favorites today. So the Brooklyn Nets are barely the Brooklyn Nets. No Spencer Dinwiddie. No Wilson Chandler. No DeAndre Jordan. No
Taurean Prince.
Yeah, there's 4. So they got a couple wild cards out there right now. 2 guys on FanDuel for the Nets getting any sort of ownership. That would be Karis LeVert and Jared Allen. No surprises there. They're both in double digits in ownership on DK2, as is Joe Harris and Tyler Johnson. I am not excited to roster any part of the Nets, but I am interested to see what Karis LeVert does with what I have projected as 37% usage for this game. Do you see anything for Brooklyn that, like, you're confident in for today?
I mean, I'm confident that Karis LeVert's volume will be there. It's almost impossible that it's not. He doesn't have to be efficient. He's going to be able to. I wouldn't be stunned to see him take like 25 shots in the game. And when you have that, you have so much flexibility. Obviously, he has a good, efficient day. You're going to get there. If he doesn't, he can get there on pure volume. In the front court, I mean, your guess is truly as good as mine. If, say, Jared Allen gets in foul trouble, who is behind him exactly? I mean, he's going to have to log heavy minutes almost regardless of scenario.
Yeah, it's kind of murky. They don't really have anyone that you would call a traditional center, which is code for they don't have legitimate bodies. Rodions Kurucs is probably going to see some time at the backup 5, which is not really where he should be playing. They signed Lance Thomas. I have a sneaky suspicion he's going to have to get himself into game shape. They just don't have any alternatives. They don't have real big men. I think they're just going to sort of play like knockoff Houston ball if they have to, if Jared Allen's not out there, and play 5 out. But I don't think that anybody outside of Jared Allen is in play at the 5. Kurucs will split some time at the 4 as well. I don't necessarily count him, but I'm not looking at Musa or Lance Thomas or any of those guys. I think you just kind of have to bite the bullet and hope that Jared Allen is good. I like Jared Allen today. 42% owned on DraftKings might be a little steep though.
I mean, yeah, he's sub 6K there. He's going to fit a lot of different builds, and he has, as we talked about, basically no competition in the front court. So when you look at the guys who are missing, you've got Dinwiddie. Obviously, the backcourt's big losses. Chris Chiozza is now a name. That's a real person. You mentioned Tyler Johnson, who I do kind of like. He's going to garner some ownership, but it won't be massive. It's only 3,200 over on DraftKings. Do you have a preference of these guys? Do you think Chiozza is kind of, something that we don't really need to consider? How do you, rank these guys in terms of the new names and new faces?
Yeah, so you can safely ignore Chris Chiozza on FanDuel. He's 5,600. On DraftKings, where he's 3,900, much more in play. I would actually rather have Chris Chiozza than Tyler Johnson on DK. I think he's just going to play more minutes. I don't know. I never know what to make of Tyler Johnson. No team ever seems to really want him. If I'm playing anything from Brooklyn, it's Karis LeVert, it's Jared Allen, and it's Joe Harris. And even Joe Harris, 5,400 on DraftKings, not a fun price. It's more of a FanDuel thing since you have to have two people at each position. LeVert, Allen, and probably a little bit of Chris Chiozza. I don't get the sense I want to go anywhere else. Like Kurucs is 3,300. That's great. He can play anywhere from 18 to 28 minutes. I've got him in for 24, but that's still only my 40th ranked guy on DK for this slate. So it's mostly just LeVert and Allen. I can't really go any other direction.
No, I don't think it's really the opportunity to reach on one of the unknowns. Harris, to me, pretty low variance. He's going to get the minutes. I think he plays just fine. It'll be Allen and LeVert, like most people. They're going to garner the ownership. I like Tyler Johnson, I think, a little more than you. I think he'll get the run as the second unit. The usage will be there. Other than that, though, this is a team I don't think you want to be messing around because they have other bodies, but your guess is as good as mine of who may emerge, and it just doesn't seem on a 6-game slate. We have a little more options. If they were yesterday and they were one of the 2 games, maybe you do reach for some of these guys, but it's pretty unnecessary today.
Only thing that gives me pause about Tyler Johnson is that we're already projecting him for 18% ownership.
Yeah, that's one of the things I really like about this slate is there are 2 really easy paths for both stars and scrubs and balance builds. Like, you start plugging in LeVert, Jared Allen, that's going to lead you're going to be able to hit a lot of 6, 7K guys. If you want, and of course we're going to get there to Luka, to Harden, to guys like that. Yeah, I didn't know if you were just leaving me.
I had to shut the door. I heard the dog coming up the steps. I didn't want him to mess with me.
But, guys like Tyler Johnson, even Chiozza to an extent, they're going to unlock plenty of salary for you, and you can really pay up. Yeah,
if I was going to leave while talking about the Brooklyn Nets is definitely the way to do it.
Yeah, leave me high and dry.
The problem is, I think the Orlando Magic are even uglier than the Brooklyn Nets for today. Only Nikola Vucevic is north of 10% ownership on DK. Everybody else in single digits, Vuce at 17. You get a little bit more love on FanDuel where they have ridiculously priced Jonathan Isaac at 3,500. That's the flat minimum. You have to at least have him in play, probably a solid cash option for today. We're projecting him at 32% ownership. Vooch is at 18 on FanDuel. Evan Fournier is at 15. I would say Vooch and John Isaac are clearly my 2 favorites. I'm not as enamored with Evan Fournier, but I really don't want any part of Orlando. This game is just hideous. I hate that it's the 2:30 start because I have to kind of watch it. Do you want anything from Orlando?
Not really. I mean, it's not a team I'm overly interested in. Obviously, Vooch is in a great spot. He should just feast. We mentioned that lack of depth for the Nets front court. The guy I wanted to talk to you about, I believe he's going to play. He's got a groin issue, is Aaron Gordon, who's shown some sign. He was playing really well before we had the break. If he's low owned, I don't mind going there. Now, I haven't heard anything in terms of if he's on a minutes cap or anything. He did, I believe, practice. Do you have a feel there, or do you think it's an unnecessary risk?
It's probably an unnecessary risk. They don't really have anything to worry about. Like, they should make the final 8 with very little effort. The East is sort of a different scenario for them. It's not like the West where there's 6 more teams behind them. I have Aaron Gordon in for 31 minutes, and I'm not all that interested. If he is out, 6,800 is a big tag when everybody is like, now that John Isaac is back. If Isaac was gone, I'd feel a little bit better about it. Not that Isaac's some like usage hog. Like I have Aaron Gordon 11th on FanDuel. That's per position. I don't have anybody ranked well outside of Vooch, honestly. I would be shocked if I got to really anything from Orlando. I don't expect Fultz to be relevant. He has been limited for faulty reasons. Who knows? DJ Augustine could be okay at 4,300, but it's not all that appealing. Who plays backup center for the Magic, I think, is an interesting question. Is it Mo Bamba? Do they go to Kem Birch? Could they go to just lineups with John Isaac at the 5, given Brooklyn not having a backup center? This could look a little bit different, and that could be an angle to play. But to me, this game is mostly an avoid.
Yeah, I mean, listen, with 6 games, you're going to have the luxury. You don't have to try to reach. There's so much value elsewhere, guys with more secure minutes. I'm certainly not going for value with Orlando. If I go there, it will be with Vooch. I'll pay up at center. I have more interest in Aaron Gordon than you do. I think at 6,800 over on FanDuel, sneaky ownership shouldn't be there. At least that's not what we're projecting just yet. So that's something to keep in mind. But despite the Nets being just straight garbage, it's not that great a spot. And I don't have a ton of interest on the Magic side.
Name your 2 favorite plays in this game.
I mean, I guess I'm going to punt it a little. It's going to be pretty obvious. I'm just going to go LeVert and Vooch.
Okay. That's fair.
I would like to say Tyler Johnson, but unless I really need some salary to pay up somewhere, I'm not looking to force him in.
Yeah. From a FanDuel perspective, mine's Vooch and John Isaac. I only have Isaac playing 22 minutes. I think they're going to treat him a little bit with kid gloves since he's been out for so long. But even in 22 minutes, given his ability to grab defensive stats, steals and blocks, he's the flat minimum, and I think that works. Now let's talk about a game so we're going from the Brooklyn Nets Orlando Magic game, which is essentially meaningless, to the exact opposite of that. The Portland Trail Blazers, Memphis Grizzlies, Blazers 3-point favorites, 113.5 implied total. And this game has all sorts of implications moving forward. It's obviously Portland's trying to make a run to get to the 9 spot so that they can play Memphis for a chance to get into the playoffs. Portland's going to be going crazy. They've got Yusuf Nurkic and Zach Collins back. Memphis is healthy again. They're trying to hold on to their spot. There are implications for Memphis's draft pick on how it would go to Boston, or if it would go to Boston, depending on if they make the playoffs or not. So that's sort of an extra piece to all of this. Let's start here. Portland Trail Blazers have what's supposed to be their legitimate team outside of Rodney Hood back. Dame Lillard, 8,900 on FanDuel, 9,300 on DK. CJ McCollum, 7,400 and 7,500. The guy that we have to pay closest attention to, in my opinion, is Zach Collins. He's 4K on FanDuel and the flat min on DK. He's already 45% owned, but I see no way he's not the most popular value play of the day. He's just better than a 3K player by quite a bit. I know we haven't seen him, but I'm giving him 28 minutes, and he's essentially a lock to me. What do you want to do with this Portland team?
So, yeah, I mean, they caught a huge break, not just with him, with Nurkic as well, that they got their troops back for the stretch run here. If he sees those minutes, and I'm not doubting that he will, it's not even in play. I don't want to say he's a lock, but he's going to probably get there. It doesn't mean you can get around it if you like a different build, but he's the easiest starting point considering he's the flat min. I think to a lesser extent, Nurkic is also in a fantastic spot, sub 6K on DraftKings. I'm not going to pay an extra 2,200 for Whiteside there. He's going to see minutes as well. Huge game, all hands on deck for both of these teams, as you mentioned. I think he's underpriced. And then the guy I wanted to ask you mentioned Rodney Hood. Trevor Ariza also not here. Is it Melo time?
That's not where I thought you were going at all.
Really?
I would have bet my life this was a Gary Trent plug.
Oh, God. Gary Trent he's solidified himself as a baller just from the NBA Sim show, and I'm going to leave him there. No, I'm talking about my man, former New York Knick great. Melo, 5,400 should be pretty secure in the minutes.
Yeah, I gave him 30. I gave Gary Trent 26, actually. So I probably have more interest in your boy Gary Trent Jr. than I do in Melo. I don't want to pay for 5K-ish Melo. I understand that he has lost some weight. Kudos to Melo for getting into the salad game during the quarantine. It's totally irrelevant to me.
No respect.
I think the most interesting piece of this game is the fact that Damian Lillard is 8,900 on FanDuel and 9,300 on DraftKings. They are playing for their lives. They are they are attempting to try to make the playoffs out of nowhere, essentially. They shouldn't even be like this. The pause and the quarantine and coming back 4 months later, it benefits no one more than it benefits the Portland Trailblazers. They were not making the playoffs, and now they have that opportunity to be disruptive. Because if they do get in as that 8 seed, that means they're playing well. They had to go through everything scorching hot. That's not fun at all for a team that was in the Western Conference Finals last year. I gave him 36 minutes. I think the upside is massive. He hasn't had much help this year. He's probably going to be a top 5 MVP candidate this year. I want to go to Dame. I'm not worried about Memphis at all. Give me some Dame Lillard. 14% owned on DraftKings right now.
He's in so it's an interesting spot in the sense that in a vacuum, if you told me $9,300 Lillard in a game where he's going to be heavily involved, obviously they need the game, I would say, all right, yeah, 6-game slate though, he's going to be mega popular. That's not the case because it is a dead zone. Most people are either paying over the top for the top tier, or as I mentioned, and we're going to get to these guys, but the Rubios of the world and those guys are cheaper. So it's a weird spot for him. Obviously that does make it interesting, but I'd be lying if I said the front court didn't interest me more than the Blazers backcourt.
Okay. I think I'm most interested in Dame in large field GPP scenarios if he's going to be owned like this. I think we have Westbrook coming in $100 more expensive and in the mid-30s for ownership. To me, that just feels like the natural immediate pivot to make in a large field GPP to get a little bit different because those guys don't have all that different of ceilings. At least Westbrook on the Rockets doesn't have that different of a ceiling.
No, and that's definitely, like I said, it's more of a lineup construction for me. And obviously it's very early. I haven't put all the pieces together. But man, most of my builds, it was rare when I was looking at that position saying like, I need someone even close to that salary. It was either way over or way under. So that's something to monitor. What, real quick, I know we talked about him and I mentioned him, but like, do you feel comfortable with Nurkic?
I mean, at 5,900 on DK, yes.
Okay.
7,200 on FanDuel isn't all that appealing. I can say for certain you should not play a single share of Hassan Whiteside at those two prices. But yeah, I feel pretty good. 59, like he shouldn't have any struggles to get, a solid day. I expect his playing time to be relatively normal. I split those guys 26-22. Wouldn't be crazy to see that be slightly higher for Nurkic. I'm not too worried about him. I mean, he was set to come back when we went on quarantine. So I think that these 4 months are probably just really good for him. He had a horrific leg break. I think having just 4 additional months is probably perfect for him. Like a better scenario than having come back in March.
Yeah, I really like him on DraftKings. And again, that's not sneaky by any stretch, but if you don't want to play Collins, or even if you want to pair them, but like he's not going to be 40% owned. He's going to be popular, but not that popular.
Exactly. Quick shout out to Sean Logan. Thank you very much for the super chat. He said, I know it's early on, but at the end of the show, could you give your top 5 plays on DK? Absolutely. We will do that when we close out. Let's hit up Memphis. Really only 2 guys picking up ownership. That would be Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. Jaren Jackson Jr. coming in 4,700 on FanDuel, 4,900 on DK. So it's not all that surprising to see him get a little love. Ja, 6,300 on FanDuel. I love him. Number 1 point guard for me today. So I'm definitely focused on Ja Morant on FanDuel, given that price tag. After that, it's probably not for me. I think Valanciunas is way too expensive for this particular spot. And he's going to have to deal with 2 actual centers for the game. Not really good for me there. I'm not looking to scrape by on Dylan Brooks, although he looks like an okay value on FanDuel at 4,300. There's no Tyus Jones, but I don't get the sense that DeAnthony Melton picks up like a ton of minutes. So really my focus is Ja Morant Jaren Jackson Jr., and very specifically, Ja Morant on SuperDraft, where he has a 1.55 multiplier. Ooh. That is what I want.
Okay, yeah, that's quite appealing. So you mentioned, obviously, all the main people except one guy, and a guy I actually want to ask you about, Brandon Clark.
Okay.
4,100. Don't think he's going to be too popular. Do you think he's obviously not a straight pivot off a guy like Zach Collins, but he's in the same game. He's cheap. I don't mind that if you're going against Graham. We're talking, we have a $25 tournament on DraftKings where, you're trying to win $1 million. Yeah. That's the type of guy I think is more suited to that. Obviously, the prudent play is to take the safety, but Brandon Clark is someone I'm taking a close look at today.
I like that idea as a pivot off of Collins just in this particular game. I don't think he's going to play enough, but that's a spot where, like, if I end up being wrong, it's not like he's not good. I have him in as a 1.1 fantasy point per minute guy, but when he left for the quarantine, his last 30 days, he was 1.32. That's a legit number at 4,100. The problem with someone like Brandon Clark is that he doesn't do anything particularly well. He just does everything kind of good.
Yeah.
And I see him being a much better benefit to the Grizzlies from a plus-minus perspective than from a fantasy perspective now that everybody's back. Like, I expect Valanciunas to play the full run at center. They have Gorgeous Dong there now as a backup center. Whether or not they're splitting that time between Gorgeous Dong and Brandon Clark, I don't know. Then you just have Brandon Clark and Jaren Jackson Jr. at power forward. So I think that the minutes are a little bit limited. I would want to be playing Brandon Clark more. I don't know if he gets that. Maybe we get lucky and Jaren Jackson gets into foul trouble as he is wont to do.
I don't know if it's luck at this point. Like, he's already in foul trouble at 10:30 in the morning. The guy can't stay off on the court. So
fair. I like Brandon Clark as in a GPP as a pivot to Zach Collins. Absolutely, I agree with you there.
That's the narrative I'm going for. Obviously, like I said, there are easier, more prudent plays, but there's scenarios when you combine, and these are a lot of if statements. If Jackson's in foul trouble, Clark can contribute in a multitude of ways. It's the type of spot where I could see the minutes kind of trend towards where his ceiling would be. And the production, I actually feel pretty confident if the minutes are there that the production will follow.
What's your favorite play in this entire game?
Nurkic, especially on DraftKings. He's not a $5,900 player.
For me, FanDuel has to be Ja Morant because of the price tag, $6,300. If it's a cash game, it's clearly Zach Collins on DraftKings. I don't think there's any debate there. But I actually think that I'm going to say Ja Morant clear across the board. I know I love Dame. I wish he was like a $200 cheaper on DK to really give me that. Ja Morant at $7K. He's going to win the Rookie of the Year shortly. I'm anxious to see if he added anything to his game in the 4 months that we were off. How much did he work? I think we'll see that pretty quickly out of the gate. Okay. Now we got another one. Do you have anything else for this Portland game?
No. I'll just say real quick, because this is kind of what I look at. Not that it's going to determine too much on the DFS side. Blazers are a 3-point favorite, 223 total. I do think that the Blazers will win the game. I may actually bet them in the spot.
Okay. Yeah. Make sure you drop your betting takes here. Ben is key piece of our Awesemo odds team.
Yeah, that's right. No, I should just stop because like I said, I hit the Clippers last night. I should just retire. Want to know basketball, college more my speed than the NBA, but still a good time to bet.
I don't even want to do this next game. Another steaming pile of garbage, much like Nets Magic. But before we get on to Wizards Suns, there are 888 of you in this room right now. Wouldn't be mad at you if you hit that thumbs up. 154 likes right now. I think we should turn that into 250 like that. So hit that thumbs up. If you've already hit it once, don't hit it again, else it goes away. Hit that thumbs up. It helps us out a ton. The Washington Wizards against the Phoenix Suns. 108.5 implied total for the Wizards, 115.5 for the Suns. That's a 7-point line. Here we go. Wizards, no Bradley Beal. Wizards, no Davis Bertans. Wizards, no chance at making the playoffs. Wizards, no good. I have an infinite amount of messages from a friend of the program, Ship My Money, who was supposed to be working on the Wizards rotation after I asked him what his thoughts were. And he said, I just spaced out for an hour instead of doing the Wizards. And then he got into it. His minutes are all over the place. I've gotten at least 15 messages since the show started with changes that he's making, including originally projecting Gary Payton II in, and he is not playing. So this is going to be quite the journey for us. Let's just say right now, 4,600 on FanDuel, 4,700 on DraftKings, only in the 12 and 13% range for ownership. I love Troy Brown here. I think he plays 30 minutes. It's one of the few people that actually have a pulse on the Wizards. Troy Brown, without question, my favorite play on the Wizards. Is there a single player that stands out to you?
No, stands out? Definitely not. At the same time, unlike some of these other teams, Nets in particular, where I'm just like, all right, you've got the obvious guys, you've got the garbage guys. I think this is the type of spot where you're playing a little guessing game, but if you get it right, these are Millie type plays. Somebody on the Wizards is going to explode. It's obviously Napier is interesting. Hachimura, they're going to have bodies in there, but I don't know if we can accurately project it. But I like that in the sense that the minutes are going to be all over the place. I think the ceiling and the floor is not even close on a lot of these guys. I think these are GPP targets that you really want to consider, unlike some of the other bad teams where it's kind of set in stone where the usage is going to go.
It's so gross.
It's really bad, yeah.
I had trouble filling out this rotation. Getting more information throughout the day is going to be essential. I gave Jerry Grant minutes. I don't know if he even sees the floor. He could play a lot for all I know. Rui Hachimura, popular on FanDuel, 5,600. I gave him 30 minutes. I'm not interested either way. I certainly want to fade 28%. I do have a little bit of interest in Jerome Robinson at the flat min on FanDuel. He's not getting owned at all, but I think he's going to have to play, 24 minutes or so. The center rotation is gross. They've got Thomas Bryant. They've got Mo Wagner. They've got Yamahinmi. They've got Pasta Sneaks, or however you're supposed to say that name. Adam says it one way. I don't know how to say it any longer. It's been too long. I don't know how that shakes out. Adam seems to be a fan of Thomas Bryant for today. 5,300 on FanDuel, 4,600 on DK. He's 14% owned. I'll say this much. On DraftKings, he's my second favorite center. I'm not sure I get to all that much on FanDuel. Are you going to try to sift through this center rotation?
It's for a team that's just straight dumpster fire. It's actually more bodies than I would like. I don't mind Brian on DraftKings, 4,600, pretty reasonable tag. But to me, the interest is more in the backcourt. I think there's less hurdles. You mentioned Brown, but talk to me about Napier and then Ish Smith. Obviously combined, they're going to be out there an insane amount, but without all the usage that has been removed, Napier's that type of guy. It seems like the minutes was the only thing that were holding him back.
Yeah, so I certainly prefer Napier to Ish. I think this is going to sort of be Shabazz Napier's team. Yeah. 6,200 on FanDuel, 5,700 on DraftKings. Only 11% owned on DK, so I like him quite a bit more on DK just because of that price tag. I don't have much interest in Ish, 4,400 on FanDuel, 4K on DraftKings. To me, he's just not a guy that they need to get going. They've got so many different weird young dudes that they can go to. Well, not so many, but what you have with Ish Smith. They don't really have anything to play for. So I don't think that he gets some sort of staggering run. I gave him 22 minutes. He could see 24, and I think that's fine. To me, there's just better spots out there. I will happily go to Napier, and given the ownership we have on him right now, I assume that I'll be a bit over the field.
So within the Wizards, to me, and I do this in all the sports, I try to make buckets where you have Ish Smith, to me, not huge variance. Honestly, Troy Brown Jr., not huge variance. That doesn't mean they're not in play. I just think they're pretty secure in their roles. Then you've got these other guys, like you mentioned the front court. Napier, to me, is also a little more boom bust. That's where if I want to take a shot and I'm really looking to pump up the variance, I may look to some of these Wizards, because if they stay in the game, someone's going to have to log these minutes. I'm not going to even worry about a blowout. I don't even know what that would do. These guys it's not like they need to pull them off the court, to be honest.
Yeah, this doesn't strike me as a spot where there's like a blowout rotation. If I'm the Wizards, I just play the game like it's normal one way or the other. You don't got to get your starters out if they're getting creamed in the fourth, you just play out the string. I think there's no, well, you got to make sure you get Admiral Schofield back out on the floor. Give me a break. Phoenix side's weird though. Dario Saric is fully up in the air today. He is not on the injury report. I don't know if the injury report matters all that much in the bubble, so we'll see where that goes. Has been missing from a lot of team activities. There is some ownership coming in here, but not as much as you would think. DeAndre Ayton in the teens on both sites. Booker's pretty big on FanDuel, 28%. He's only 8K there. Rubio, 6,500 on FanDuel. He's my number 4 point guard. I like these guys a lot more on FanDuel than I do on DraftKings. Even Mikal Bridges, 5,300 on FanDuel. I'm going to have the first 4 guys, Ayton, Booker, Rubio, and Bridges, quite a bit. Do you have any thoughts on Phoenix against what is just an absolute patchwork Wizards team?
Oh, absolutely. This is a spot very interested in. You mentioned the prices on FanDuel are appealing, but even, I think you can justify Rubio over on DraftKings at 74. He is and this is where, just to go back, because I do think it's important to jump back and forth between the individual games and the slate as a whole. Like when you talked about Lillard, 93, Booker at 88. That's probably why I'm having a little trouble. And then you've got, like I said, Rubio there with Ja right next to him. I prefer Rubio in that spot. So these are guys that I'm going to look to. I have no problem with Ayton either. It's just there seemingly is a lot of viable, Vooch, we talked about Allen, Vooch. There's a lot of big men on this slate. So I don't mind him, but he's one of many that I'm pretty into.
Yeah, 7,600 for Ayton on FanDuel is just a much different price, especially with only having, one center spot. Nurkic is $400 cheaper, but you have to feel at least a little bit safer with DeAndre Ayton than Yusuf Nurkic in this sort of scenario. Otherwise, you're paying all the way up to Vooch. So I think Ayton probably my favorite center outside of a guy that we'll get to a little bit later for the San Antonio Spurs. Do you have any interest in Cam Johnson if Dario Saric is in fact out? I gave him 26 minutes. He's 4,300 on both sites, not picking up any ownership. The Suns kind of got laughed at when they drafted him this year. He was essentially a shooting stiff. I thought he looked a little bit better than that. He's averaged about 0.8 fantasy points per minute throughout the season. I think this is a kind of sneaky spot. I assume the Wizards defense, even when they were healthy, was atrocious. If they're so bad coming in here, someone like Cam Johnson might end up with a ton of open looks for 3. And that dude is one of the best shooters in the league.
Yeah, he could always shoot, even in college. I don't mind it. I will say that if Saric is ruled out, the ownership will pick up, obviously. Yeah. So that's something to keep in mind. And there are options. I mentioned, again, Brandon Clark, similar price point. But you can really attack. We're going to see this throughout. Washington is just a dumpster fire. And their defense is horrible. It was horrible, and it's going to be horrible. So if anyone is getting secure minutes against them, fire away, including Cam Johnson, if that's the case.
Favorite player in this game?
Rubio.
Wow.
I would not. No.
I don't hate it. I just would not have expected you to say Rubio.
Yeah, I mean, listen, in a perfect world, I'll have the salary to get to Booker in a lot of spots. But if I don't, I feel pretty comfortable. He should just control this game. And there's just so much to go around. I wouldn't be stunned to see it be a sloppy game with the peripherals racked up. Like, those things matter. And he's going to get a big piece of that if that happens.
I'll say that my favorite play here is Troy Brown.
Wow.
That's for both sites, FanDuel or DK. And that makes me feel disgusted.
Yeah, that's kind of gross, but I see it. He's pretty secure on a team that's so I know you mentioned you didn't like him, but are you going to have any Hachimura?
Definitely not on DraftKings at 7,400. Okay. Full stop, 0. He'll probably work his way into a couple lineups on FanDuel, probably like a 5% guy. I don't know why he's 28% owned. I have very little interest. Like, I have him playing 30. So maybe that's my issue. I have him playing 30 minutes. The implication must be that he plays a lot more. I have him for 27.5 fantasy points. That's 0.92 fantasy points per minute. That's better than I have him rated. So I can only give him so much more. I think that he's just overowned.
Fair enough. And listen, when you're talking about boom bust guys, that's the other side of it, is like, if you're going to see ownership massing on the Wizards, it's the exact opposite. Like, I will roll the dice and short those guys just because the floors are not intact. You can really benefit by, avoiding the landmines is just as important as getting the plays right in some circumstances.
I want to give a shout out again to Christian for the super chat. KTOV to the moon. Yeah. I should have bought that stuff instead of playing last night. It would have, my whole life could have been different. Yeah.
Shame. It's a damn shame.
Your life would have been completely different.
Yep. Win some, you lose
Anyway, first and foremost, thank you guys for hitting that thumbs up when I asked before this game started. We got that number up over 250, which is great to see. We also got another number up a little bit, 4 digits, 1,030 people in here at 10:42 to talk NBA. I love it. So to the additional 200 and change people that showed up, also still hit that thumbs up. 280 is not enough. Let's just crank that number to the moon along with KTOV. But what we really need to do is talk about signing up at Awesemo. If you want to do that, use the promo code RESTART. You'll get 50% off your first platinum package. You get access to everything. PGA, baseball, basketball, football's coming. Time it perfectly. You might even get into that week 1. I don't even know when week 1's supposed to be. Hockey is back tomorrow. MMA card is tomorrow. We had the MMA strategy show yesterday with Pete the Heat and Jason Floyd. We've got NASCAR coming up. I think we're going to see Jason Floyd on that show as well, doing some hosting duties. We've got it all. You can use that promo code RESTART, but you need to use it fast. That code ends August 3rd. That's 8-3. So use it now when you sign up. RESTART. Find out what it means to me. I almost spelled respect there. I really did, accidentally. Use the promo code RESTART, guys. 3 games to go, and this one is a fun game. I don't know how much it matters inside the bubble. Milwaukee Bucks, Boston Celtics. Bucks 5-point favorites. We're not going to have Eric Bledsoe for Milwaukee. We are going to have some ownership on one Giannis Antetokounmpo, however. 10-7 on FanDuel, 10-5 on DK. 30% owned on DraftKings, 40% owned on FanDuel. I get it. Look, I gave him 30 minutes. They have treated him with kid gloves all season. I see no reason why that changes, at least during the seeding games. But this is the guy that was scoring 1.8 fantasy points per minute during the regular season. Do you like Giannis here against Boston?
I mean, obviously Giannis is in play, but no, I'm not going to use him. And if that's what kills me, you have to make decisions. In a perfect world, I would have him with all the other guys. I have other priorities, and it's simply for the narrative that I do think there's a reasonable chance, because this is what they should do. The Bucks, of all the teams, if you ranked all the teams, they would be dead last in terms of teams that need to worry about anything for a while. They are secure. They need to be healthy and ready to go. I'm not saying Giannis is going to play like 15 minutes, but if the game is on the verge of blowing out, if he tweaks anything to the most minor extent, all those gray areas, it's a full be careful for them. They have nothing to play for. I think we see a little of that, and that's why I can get away from it, or at least try to justify, fading the best player.
Harden, 11K on DraftKings, 16% owned. Luka, 10-5, 33% owned. Giannis, 10-5, 28% owned. If you're paying up for any one of the 5-figure dudes, is it Harden, is it Luka, is it Giannis?
It's Luka for me. Again, the Mavericks, just a different situation. It's a great matchup with the Rockets, and we'll get there, but I'm not sure. I don't think you need to pay up for any of them. There's a lot of balanced builds that are very viable, but for me, Luka would be ahead of Giannis.
Okay. I really don't know what to do with him here. This is a guy where if he does play 28 minutes, he could still go for 66 fantasy
easily.
Points. I have him projected for something really like 28 and 14 in 30 minutes or something stupid with a wealth of blocks and steals. He's hard to avoid. I'd feel okay with him in a cash scenario, given that ownership and his way to just fill the stat sheet. I'm a little nervous about him in GPPs. I don't know how much the Bucks are going to go for it. Stan Van Gundy actually had an interesting thought on Zach Lowe's podcast about a week ago, in that we're all thinking about these games for Milwaukee and the Lakers and the Clippers one way, where we don't think that teams are going to just go crazy trying to get these guys ready. Stan thought sort of the opposite. These guys have been off for 4 months, that they might actually want to use these games to ramp up their guys before the playoffs start. Otherwise, they might be too rusty getting into the playoffs. I really don't know what to make of that. I just thought it was an interesting point. So it's not as if, look, Giannis isn't playing 36 minutes today no matter what. That's just not the way the Bucks are going to do this. I feel kind of okay with him, though. I really like Chris Middleton, though, on FanDuel. 7,100, 7,600 on DK. I mean, this is a guy that's been fantastic this year. Could be a sneaky all-NBA option for this season. 7,100 on FanDuel, knowing I have to do the positional split. With him only getting 15% ownership, that's the other guy that I'm looking at. I'm not trying to grab really anybody else for the Bucks because I think they spread the minutes out a lot. I don't think that there's anybody that is truly just a full benefactor for Eric Bledsoe being out. George Hill's 3,800 on both sites. I'd like to have a little just because he's going to be out there, but he's not going to pick up. He's not going to play 30 minutes. I've got him in for 24. Do you want anything else from the Bucks?
No, George Hill is you see Bledsoe out. He's the obvious guy that you're going to look to. Again, I think he's going to get some minutes. I think he'll play just fine. How often is he nuking the slate? Probably not that often. And I think when you're talking about large field tourneys, you can get away. And yes, to be clear, if Giannis doesn't get the minutes, he still has a many viable paths to crush the slate, but the margins are a lot slimmer. And even if the one thing I want to say Stan Van Gundy's right, and I don't think that's the craziest thing. It's ramping up. You don't ramp up in the first game. Like maybe we see Giannis's minutes trend upward, so it starts to peak for the opening, series. But we're not going to see it today, no matter what. And that's where I think you can get away with it with 6 games. Raw points not nearly as important as last night.
I'm with you there. Are you scraping the bottom of the barrel for anybody from the Bucks? Any value here that stands out to you?
No, I mean I think the obvious value is in fact George Hill, but I'm not overly enticed to play him just because, again, there's other guys in other games where I know exactly what the team not exactly what the team wants to do, but their motivation is secure and the upside is a little more. He kind of feels like a fringe cash play that I'm not going to get to.
Okay. Well, then let's slide over to the Boston side. Kemba Walker likely to be limited, but should be full to go. I gave him 24 minutes. We know what's going on for the rest of this team. It's Tatum, Hayward, Brown, Marcus Smart, Daniel Tice. No one on the Celtics on DraftKings has ownership higher than 6%. So let's just start there. Does that matter to you? Does that make you, do you see a Boston name that you definitely want knowing that they're going unowned?
No, I mean, I think it makes guys that if you're interested in them, you can roll the dice because, again, if you get it right, you're benefiting massively from the ownership. Gordon Hayward would be the one guy that I'd feel okay about over on DraftKings. Now, these prices over on FanDuel are a lot more appealing. So that's something you can look to when you talk about guys like Jaylen Brown and co. But listen, this is a brutal match. It's probably the best game, one of the few that I'm very excited to watch. But from a fantasy perspective, I don't know how often we see really massive performances here. And I think you can get away with going pretty underweight on the game as a whole.
Yeah, I don't have much interest in. They don't grade out all that well on DK for me. I think the Tice would be the most interesting player for me at 5K on DK. On FanDuel, I like them all a little bit better just because of having to play 2 guys at each position. I see a scenario where you can work these guys in. It's a big pace up spot for Boston. So the guy that actually stands out most to me is probably Jaylen Brown, 5,800, but he's getting 20% ownership. So it immediately becomes a little bit less interesting. I actually kind of want to lean on Marcus Smart on FanDuel.
I knew you were going to say that.
He's 6,400 on DK, but he's 5,400 on FanDuel. 6% ownership. He's a pest on the floor. He's going to be out there, I would imagine, I have 32 minutes. I wouldn't be shocked to see an extra minute or 2 there. Just shy of a fantasy point per minute guy. Marcus Smart's the kind of guy that I want to look at from Boston, at least for this spot, given his ownership.
Yeah, I mean, that's, again, you're talking blocks and steals, rack up fast on FanDuel. ownership not going to be there. Very, very viable. And you know what? Z-Rich in chat just mentioned this. We're underselling this game, especially the Milwaukee side. That's very, very true. I could get burned here in a big way. I don't like this game nearly as much as the public. I think I can get away with it. Maybe, like I said, Middleton, and you mentioned him. But as a whole, I'm going to be underweight against the field for this entire game, and that's definitely scary.
Are you excited for this game?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be a lot more excited if this is like, what we see in the second round. I definitely think the Celtics are live to get out of the East as a whole. So, yeah, but I'll put it like this. No matter what, if the Bucks lose by 30 here or win by 30, it doesn't mean much to me. I don't think you can draw much from it.
Okay, that I totally agree with. I think this is the third best game behind Blazers-Grizzlies, which I think is number one with multiple bullets, and then Mavs-Rockets, which should be the number one, but they just have a little bit less to play for than Blazers-Grizzlies. So
Blazers-Grizzlies is like a playoff game.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. But what's not like a playoff game, however, the San Antonio Spurs and the Sacramento Kings. Spurs are 4.5-point underdogs to the Kings. This one stinks. No LaMarcus Aldridge for the Spurs. No Trey Lyles for the Spurs, which means my man Jake Puddle is chalk season. 4,200 on FanDuel, 4,700 on DK. He's about 30% owned across both sites. I love it here. It's Jake Puddle season all the way. He's my number one center on FanDuel. I'm going to have a bunch of them on DraftKings. If I'm playing anybody from San Antonio, full stop, it's Jake Puddle. Oh, yeah, no Bryn Forbes either.
Yeah, listen, pop is pop, and there's always some scary when there's a lot of unknowns, but this is a great spot for your boy. Price is reasonable. Minutes should be there. He's going to be popular, but this is chalk that I am also buying into. And I think he makes sense in a ton of formats. You can really go a lot of places, and he's going to not hamstring you when you build. Now, Lonnie Walker. This is where we get into the danger zone with the Spurs, because you really never know what they're going to do. But on the good side is he can fit a lot of different positions. They can utilize him in a lot of different ways, a lot of different lineup combinations. He is, 32, I believe? 3,200. Yeah. That's pretty appealing. Again, obviously different position. Zach Collins, if you want to go elsewhere and you still need basically a flat min, you could go there. Obviously, we have both of them. I'm sure people will do that, and then they will try to take Luka and Giannis or something along those lines. That'll be, I'd say, a somewhat viable build. But are you going to pay for that type of salary saver, or do you think it's unnecessary?
So I get a little nervous as ownership creeps up on value for the Spurs. I don't feel that way for Jakob Poeltl because they don't have other centers. He's going to play mid-20s or more minutes, I would imagine, or the Spurs just get really weird. For Lonnie Walker, though, are you ever really comfortable that those minutes don't go to Marco Bellinelli or Keldon Johnson or a couple more minutes to Patty Mills? So I always try to pump the brakes a little bit when any Spurs break free, but for sure, at 3,200, there's not a lot that can hurt you by going to Lonnie Walker. So I'm certainly interested. I'm more interested in Lonnie Walker than I am at DeJounte Murray at 6,100, even though I think that he is primed to really shine for this team. I just, one game he's great, the next game he's a ghost. They're going to try to play him and Derek White alongside each other a little bit more. That's like the white whale of the NBA, to see if those guys can play it alongside each other. Doing that against Sacramento works. They have a wealth of guards, so it's not going to be a size issue. I'm not really worried about that spacing either. I don't know what to do with this Spurs team. I just hate it. I don't trust them to do anything. So I'm going to say it's Jakob Poeltl at the top. Full stop. Number one with a bullet. You probably have to skip a space after that. My second favorite guy in this game, it's probably DeMar DeRozan, honestly.
Yeah.
Because I think that he's just going to continue to be DeMar DeRozan. And I think that has some value. In a scenario where we're going to the NBA and all hell has broken loose over the past 4 months. The consistency of DeMar DeRozan shooting like 25, 15 footers in this game feels safe. So I'll go Jake Puddle, DeMar DeRozan, Lonnie Walker on DK as a value play. Nobody else really standing out to me. I think DeJounte Murray's a little overowned.
I think it's very, very reasonable across the board. And that's where balance, not in terms of salary, but when you build, like you don't want to take all ridiculous boom bust players. Obviously, depending on the structure of the tournament, you need to up it. But there is something to be said if you have some really aggressive guys and you say, you know what, I want DeMar DeRozan because he's just kind of do his thing. He's not going to define your lineup. He fills his role, he gets it done, and he lets your other players, which again, if they're extremely volatile, either win the tournament for you or lose the tournament for you. And that is very useful on a slate like this. So in spots, I may go to him. I'm in line with you, though. We see eye to eye on the Spurs completely.
1.4x multiplier for DeMar DeRozan on SuperDraft. I think that stands out. No reason to think that he couldn't do something really weird in this spot. And 1.4x is a pretty big number.
Any interest in Rudy Gay?
I just don't think he plays enough minutes to matter. I gave him 24. I don't think that they're going to really stretch him out in either direction. In theory, could play as a small ball 5 here, especially if the Kings go to Bjelica at the 5. That would make him a little bit more appealing, but I think he's just a little bit overpriced given what we need out of him.
Fair enough. I'd rather play Melo for what it's worth.
That's fair. Then we go to the Kings side. No Marvin Bagley because that dude is just not allowed to be on a basketball court, I guess. So there's that. De'Aaron Fox, double digits in ownership on both sites, including 2,700 or 27% on FanDuel, where he's 7,500. He's my number 2 point guard. I will have a lot of the combination of De'Aaron Fox and Ja Morant. And then the most owned guy coming in from the Kings, because he's a $3,900 power forward, that would be starting center and bubble breaker Richaun Holmes. No doubt, probably the top play on FanDuel today. He's 3,900, and you don't have to worry about limiting to just one center. You get to slot him in a power forward. It's a no-brainer. He is just fantastic value in this scenario. And I still like him at 5,100 on DraftKings. What stands out to you from the Sacramento Kings?
Not a ton. Certainly, you mentioned Holmes is just, that's as simple as it gets over on FanDuel. It's not even position scarcity either. It just fills one of the power forward slots, and it's just great value. So eat that chalk, in my opinion. Fox is in a bucket with a ton of other guys at a heavy position. So it's not that I'm opposed to him, but you're weighing, again, to me, Rubio is there. Ja is $600 cheaper. You could pay up if you have money for Booker or Lillard. I'm kind of neutral on him, so I think he could play fine, but he doesn't stand out in any way.
Yeah,
it's because of the All-Star game, I think. I have Buddy Hield. I'm infatuated with him. I don't know why.
Uh-oh. Jordan, do you still hear me? Okay. So Ben's dead. Ben, if you hear us, we don't hear you, or at least I don't hear you. Well, apparently Ben's infatuation with Buddy Hield is not great. The internet doesn't like it, and they got rid of Ben. So freeze frame on Ben. Fantastic. I'm looking to the left, looking at the preview window of YouTube with frozen Ben and just me. So I'm going to keep talking about Buddy Hield for him. He may be interested. I am not. 5,500 on FanDuel, 5,200 on DK. Getting a little bit of ownership. Oh, this is about to jack up the screen. I think Jordan's going to be switching to the solo shot of me shortly for an extended amount of time until Ben gets back. I don't have much interest in Buddy Hield here. I have a hard time separating him and Bogdanovic. I gave Buddy Hield 27 minutes. I gave Bogdanovic 29 minutes. I'm leaning more towards Bogdanovic, oddly enough, than on to Buddy Hield. Bogdanovic only 4,800 on DK. I think that's a pretty nice price tag. But for me, it's Fox and it's Holmes. I want to have a little bit more interest in Bjelica. 4,500 on FanDuel, I think, is the spot to do it. It's really going to be interesting to see whether or not the Kings go to Bielitsa at the 5 more, or Harry Giles. Personally, I think they should go to Bielitsa. I think they looked a little bit better as a team playing Bielitsa as a small ball 5. And I think they're in a really great spot to do that in the non-Jakob Poeltl minutes against the Spurs. When Jake Puddle's out there, you're going to want Richaun Holmes out there. Jake Puddle's a legit center. He's not a guy that you want to go small against. At least I don't think so. But on the opposite end, when Jake Puddle's not out there, I think they're primed to have Bielitsa move to the 5 and shoot the lights out. So that would be my recommendation. Fox, very clearly my number one guy from a FanDuel perspective. Richaun Holmes, though, you cannot avoid him on FanDuel. $3,900, that is a broken price tag for what is their starting center, who is actually moving to power forward. I'm not really going to scrape the bottom of the barrel here. Got a guy in chat saying Eubanks greater than Jakob Poeltl. That is a bold take, my friend. Would not go that direction. I haven't even gotten a message from Ben. I'm assuming he's rebooting his actual computer. I'm going to plow through the rest of the Spurs-Kings game. I don't have anything else to add here. You're just going to want to play the centers, both Jakob Poeltl and Richaun Holmes. Okay, there's the text message. We're not going to get Ben back. I got a text from Ben that says, I have no power. So let me send him a reply so he knows that I know that he's not coming back. Sorry, everybody, for losing Ben. But the good news is you get just my take. So this show is fixing to improve. Let me close this out. I'll close this out. Here we go. Final game, Dallas Mavericks, Houston Rockets. Apologies for losing Ben. Ben's Buddy Hield hot take was so hot that it melted his internet and every power cord in his house. And the NBA gods were, big. Okay, so Big Dongs said nobody healed. Fair enough. Let's move it on. Dallas and Houston. 9 o'clock start. This is going to be a fun game to watch. That's for sure. Mavs are 1-point favorites against the Rockets. Pace up spot, too, for Dallas. We'll start on the Mavs side. Luka Doncic, Kristaps Porzingis. I think they play the full run here. I got them both in for 33 minutes. Dallas probably trying to make some moves from a seeding perspective. Luka is 10-8 on FanDuel, 10-5 on DraftKings. And for reasons that I don't know, he's a 1.1x multiplier on SuperDraft. There's no reason that Luka should ever have any sort of hook on his SuperDraft multiplier. So today feels like a perfect opportunity to roster him in that format. 32% owned for Luka on FanDuel and 33 on DK. That's sort of where we need to dig in. I think he's going a little over-owned. I personally would rather go to James Harden, given the ownership, than Luka. I think spending the extra $500 on DraftKings will make you more contrarian. The ownership is double for Luka right now. I'd rather just spend the extra $500. I think it makes a better build if you're trying to win one of the large field GPPs. On FanDuel, where Luka is 10-8, that's $200 more expensive than Harden. They're at comparable ownership. Once again, I would rather go to Harden. Breaks my heart to say that because I'm definitely cheering for Luka Doncic. Unfortunately, I'm just not going to be able to go that direction. So while I like Luka, I think the most likely scenario is that I am not over the field on those 30% numbers. SuperDraft would be the place that I lock and load. As for someone like Kristaps Porzingis, 9,300 on FanDuel, 8,600 on DK. He's owned in the teens. I think it's fine. I'm not really enamored either way. Probably like him a little bit more on DraftKings than I do on FanDuel. There's this mid-8s range of Booker, Tatum, Porzingis, and Vooch, where I think Porzingis is actually the guy I want the most coming out of that section. I just don't know how much I get to that mid-8s range. I think it's more likely that I'm paying up into the high now, the 9s and 10s, or 11 in Harden's case, and then coming all the way down into the 7s. But Porzingis is a value no matter how you slice it, particularly on DraftKings at 8,600. After that, it gets a little scary. This team is fantastic offensively. I believe they have the highest offensive rating in the history of the NBA for this season. I don't know if it went down or not once they started playing more minutes from Dwight Powell. But is it a maxi day? 4,300 on FanDuel? Probably not. Dorian Finney-Smith is not a DFS darling, even though he is DFS. But 4,100 on DK, picking up a little bit of ownership. It's not for me. To me, Porzingis is the main guy that I would be looking at coming out of this game. After that, I don't get the sense that I'm going to have much ownership going to anything from Dallas. I gotta tell you guys now, there's no method for me to share the spreadsheet right now, or I would. We've got Jordan behind the virtual glass. He would need to share the spreadsheet. We're not going to do that today, but it's coming. It's coming. I promise. I can't just share it immediately. It won't show up on the screen. So apologies, guys. If we take a look at Houston, we'll close this out. 10-6 for Harden on FanDuel, 11K on DraftKings. He's 36% owned on FanDuel because of having to have two people at the position, two people at shooting guard. Ownership is going to naturally climb. I like him on DK at 17%. I think he's going under-owned. I think we see Harden run out of gas as he gets into the playoffs regularly. I think him getting these 4 months off is going to be massive for him. He gets to recharge the batteries. I think he was getting a little tired towards the end of this season already, right before the shutdown. It did become Russ's team for about a month before we got shut down, thanks to Rudy Gobert. Kudos to Rudy Gobert for knocking down the 2 free throws to bring back the Jazz. That's hilarious, by the way. I am very much Team Harden. Number 1 shooting guard, my number 8 overall play on DK, which given his upside and where he is in salary, I'm going to be over the field. I'd be shocked if I wasn't. That doesn't mean I don't like Russell Westbrook, though. 9,400 on DraftKings is a broken price. He's too cheap there. I don't think the 34% ownership is anything too crazy. The problem is I think it's just a little bit easier to pivot to Lillard at $100 cheaper given the ownership. So for me, I see it as an easy way to go Harden Lillard. And then if you're trying to pair it up, going with Westbrook plus someone else. That way you can get away from the Harden Westbrook combo. So I prefer Harden to Westbrook. I probably would avoid playing them together given Harden's price tag, but I'm going to have more Harden than Russ. Pretty sure of that as of right now. We'll know more. Hit me up in our premium Slack. I'll be there all day. As we get closer to lock, I'll have a much better idea of what's going on when I run my crunches. Also, you can check out my NBA DFS contenders video, my top 10 plays of the day. That will go live immediately following this show as we get closer to lock. If you need me to get any other plays from Houston, Robert Covington has to be looked at. 5,800 on FanDuel. He's already getting about somewhere in the 20s in ownership. That makes perfect sense to me. He's going to be out there for 34-ish minutes, and I don't see a way to get away from him. He's like a 1 fantasy point per minute guy. Just feels pretty safe. Don't get the sense that I'm going to pay down with PJ Tucker at all. It's possible that our Twitter account has more tweets about PJ Tucker than he has fantasy points today, but we shall see how that shakes out. Danwell House, shout out to Chris Spags, 4K on FanDuel, 3,800 on DK. He's owned roughly 10%, and I think that's exactly where someone like that should be in a game like this. This game does have a 229 total. I think that's a little appealing. We might even see that go up a little bit. Both totals got juiced as we got closer and closer to lock yesterday. I wouldn't be surprised to see that go the same direction today. If I'm summing this game up, I'm taking Harden before Luka. I'm taking Harden before Russ. I think the Robert Covington and Daniel House are both reasonable value plays. Maxey could get a little sneaky on FanDuel at 4,300, only 6% ownership. I just want to watch this game more so than anything else. It's not like a crazy DFS game for me. Now I need to sum this bad boy up. So, circling back, I needed to give top plays for DraftKings. That should be easy enough. I'll give a peek behind the curtain. Oh, you guys can't see I'm so used to you guys being able to see my screen. So, favorite plays on DraftKings. Zach Collins for sure. $3K, the flat minimum. You have to be paying attention to him. I can't imagine not wanting to just immediately slot him in because of the price. Troy Brown at 4,700 seems to me he's an incredible value. I'm going to play him 30 minutes. That would be the direction I want to go. Rashawn Holmes, probably my number 3. 5,100 still works for me on DK, although he's a much better play on FanDuel. And then we'll get into the top guys. If I'm prioritizing the pay up options, so Lillard, Westbrook, Giannis, Luka, and Harden, the direction I want to go is Harden, Giannis, Lillard, Westbrook, Luka Doncic. That doesn't make me feel good, but it does make me feel good about like GPP builds at the very least. That's all we've got though. We went an hour and 15 minutes. We lost Ben for the final 15, but that's all right. We have 1,160 people in here right now. That's fascinating. We got up over 12, I believe, for a 10 a.m. Eastern NBA show. That's the way to do a strategy show, my friends. So for Ben's sake, please hit that like button. We're at 397 right now. That number needs to go over 400 for sure, but I think that we can get to like 450. I really appreciate you guys being here. Like, subscribe. We're going to have NBA Live Before Lock shows today. We'll have some baseball content coming out throughout the day. We'll have I think there's a NASCAR show today. That's going on. Golf is already underway. So if you're sweating your golf lineups, and you are a member of Awesemo.com, hop into the premium golf channel so you can sweat that with us. We don't have to worry about a cut this week. It's fun. Thank you guys for joining us. I'm thrilled to see so many people here. I'm anxious to play this DFS slate. Justo, one last thing. Why not play Boban? I don't get the sense that Boban's going to see a ton of minutes against Houston. Not really the matchup for him with Houston not playing a traditional center. But it's hard for me to not want to talk about Boban because I mean, he's just awesome. Good luck tonight, everybody. Once again, shout out to Blaine, Awesemo family, chopping up the Millie last night. It's great to see. Good luck, guys. I'll see you later. Go James Harden.